Geoff, thanks so much for joining us. My first question before we get into the individual candidates, the individual stocks, is when you consider the market cap increases across the sector for COVID-related treatments or vaccines, do you think it's a little overdone, given that we hope, of course, this won't be something that has to be repeated every single year going into the future, and also that some of them aren't even really going to make a huge profit?
Hi, Rolford. Yes, that's exactly right. So I don't disagree with you that the valuation increases have been pretty dramatic. We are going to see, I think, historic demand for the first, say, 2 or 3 quarters out of the gates. But after that, though, I'm thinking 2022, 2023. Hopefully, it's going to start to erode in terms of the revenues.
When we look at the fact that the US is not going to hit its 10 million people vaccinated target in December, does that concern you about the rollout throughout next year, or do you think that's a sort of to be expected first month teething problems type issue?
I think it's to be expected. I wouldn't be surprised in the first quarter of next year, to have the at-risk population, which are those 70 years of age and older, and then the healthcare workers, almost fully vaccinated. That could come from a combination of Moderna and Pfizer's vaccine, and maybe you can have the AstraZeneca vaccine, and perhaps J&J kick in a little bit there. But the big question, though, is when can the everyone else trade really start to happen? And that is 2Q, 3Q next year, I think, is when the much broader population, U.S., Europe, will start to get vaccinated. So the year end doesn't really bother me.
I was just going to ask about the sort of production end of things and distribution, as they really need to ramp up right now to serve the U.S. and the global populations. Geoff, what do we need to know about the manufacturing process, the raw materials? Do they have what they need? How challenging is it going to be for them?
Yes, Sarah, I'd say that, for the most part, that is a black box. We depend a lot on what the companies say and the guidance that they give. I wouldn't say, though, that there isn't the capacity to scale up. Of course, Moderna can get to, hopefully $1 billion, Pfizer, hopefully more than $1.3 billion. And those are sort of total 2021 targets. The question is, how fast can they get there? And I think it will probably start to hit the real acceleration, middle part of the year, but definitely the stair steps to get there will occur in the first quarter. But I wouldn't be surprised to see the industry itself, come to the rescue here. And there's a lot of companies that have not participated in the COVID, vaccine development that could come and that have scale-up manufacturing. So there's a lot, I think, of excess capacity that's not really embedded in what the companies, the manufacturers, have really provided.
Geoff, kind of going back to my first question, are your top picks for next year companies that have got exposure to the COVID treatments and vaccines, or separate altogether?
Well, I would say so. We haven't formally provided 2021, but I will say 2020. We've liked Lilly throughout the year. They do have exposure to the COVID antibody, and that's embedded in their guidance. I think should have some pretty nice upside potential. And we also like in the pharma space Bristol, which does not have any sort of COVID sensitivity, but it's obviously trading at 8 times, so it's definitely more the valuation type of play.
Geoff, I'm not sure that we know yet whether we're going to have to do this every season, like the flu, right? So I'm just wondering how you assess future earnings, if this is going to be a recurring revenue for these companies, if we're going to need to get vaccinated every season.
It's a great question, Sarah. I would say we don't know yet about the durability of the benefit, and we don't know yet about resistance. And those two things, I think, we'll learn a little bit more when the long-term data come out for Pfizer and Moderna, and to some degree AstraZeneca, middle part of next year. So, but I don't expect, though, the vaccines to be part of a regular, like almost a flu-like, type of seasonality. COVID, as what we know now today, just isn't set up for that.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.